Now, before we get this video started, YouTube has been doing its monthly purge, so if you found that you've been unsubscribed to the channel, please go and resubscribe. Also, go and share this video with your friends on social media. That greatly helps grow the channel because, you know, YouTube isn't helping me in that department anymore. And at the end of the video, I have my subscribe star information along with my PO box in case you want to send me fan mail. Or Black Rifle coffee. I like coffee. The world would be an otherwise dreary place if I didn't have my coffee. But you know what? Liking and sharing also makes the world a brighter place too. Welcome back, Pixel Nation Comics Division here. How the hell are you? Now, I think I'm setting a very dangerous precedent because I've been creating more content lately, and that's just only going to lead to disappointment. Because you know, at some point, I'm just gonna flake out. So yesterday, there was a bit of a Twitter kerfluffle over a post made by Jar Jar Not Abrams. It reads, hashtag the Mandalorian. Nobody knows how to shoot in the village except for one person. You guessed it, a woman. No explanation, it's just like that, hashtag the Force is female. And if you've watched my review of episode 4, if you haven't, I suggest you do it, you know my opinion on this. The character of Amra is a modern take on the widow who lives out on the frontier that knows how to take care of herself. It's a fairly common trope and it gets used a lot. My only criticism of the character is that she seemed a little bit too accurate with that blaster rifle, to the point where it feels like she could put some pretty seasoned soldiers to shame. Now, this could actually just be an issue with the effects department making her look more accurate than she should have been. So, whatever. Anyway, this isn't a huge deal to me and it didn't break the episode. There was a lot of other things I had issues with. Now, during the live stream, Mike Rogers brought up the following point, and this is something I didn't initially think about, but he's absolutely correct on. These people live on the frontiers of society, and only one person in the village knows how to shoot a blaster? That I find very, very difficult to believe. Frontier life hardens both men and women, which means that they not only provide for themselves, but they know how to take care of themselves. So this begs the question. These people live in a world full of alien monsters and raiders. None of these villagers, with the exception of one person, possesses the abilities to defend themselves? I truly find that hard to believe. Anyway, back to Jar Jar's Twitter post. I think part of the issue is that we've been bombarded with so much agenda, it's hard not to see these things in everything. By that same token, I think people are also overreacting to the tweet saying that it's sexist. At this point, everybody just needs to step back and chill the fuck out for a moment. But that's honestly not the topic of this video, because there was a whole CBR article written about this tweet, which is hilarious in my opinion. The Mandalorian. Cara Dune triggers outrage by being female in Star Wars. By Anthony Gramuglia. And if you don't know who Anthony Gramuglia is, he's nothing more than just another activist that masquerades himself as a journalist. So anyway, with a title like that, you think there'd be a lot of people complaining about it. But it's not. It's 2 tweets by Jar Jar and an Ethan Van Sciver video about it. Talk about clickbait outrage. And if you've gone and watched Ev's video about it, it just seems more like he's kind of tired of the strong woman trope and everything. And that had more to do with the fight between Bob and Cara Dune. And that's basically it. That's the evidence he cites. For almost all of Disney Star Wars, a subsection of the franchise's fans has complained about every female character who played a leading role. Rey has been labeled a Mary Sue, well, that's because she is. Rose Tico, who I would hardly consider to be a leading role, has been called useless or out of place. Not really gonna dispute that either. Jyn Erso has been dismissed as flat. If you've actually watched the movies, you would know that to be true. The only character in Row 1 I actually found to be memorable was the droid. And Kira, who? I have no idea who that is. Apparently that's the chick from the Solo movie. I had to go look that up because she was so memorable. Out of all the problems I have with that movie, she's actually not one of them. And Kira was labeled as underdeveloped. What's wrong with adding more character development? I don't see that as being an issue, but whatever, dude. Then again, I think I would have focused more character development on Han Solo because it's his own freaking film. But no one ever brings up that criticism. Without fail, a vocal minority has criticized the women of Star Wars for ruining the films in which they appear. Now, I would say those characters have issues but aren't responsible for ruining Star Wars. No, that honor actually belongs to Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, and Rian Johnson. But that doesn't make for a sexy headline. That's now followed the property to the small screen with the new Disney Plus series, The Mandalorian. For the first 3 episodes, fans have remained almost uniformly passionate about the adventures of the mysterious bounty hunter. The show certainly has its criticisms, but the reason why it's liked so much is because it's lacking in identity politics. Thankfully. And for me, my biggest issue with episode 4 is that you really needed more time for everything to gel properly in the story, which we didn't have. However, the 4th episode introduces 2 women, Cara Dune, an ex-rebel shock trooper played by Gina Carano, and Amara, a native of the planet Sargon, drawing the ire of certain Star Wars devotees. Now, I'm not exactly sure what Anthony was getting at with that last statement. He does include a link to Twitter, and it's where Jar Jar Not Abrams is basically getting heavily criticized by a bunch of people on Twitter. So this isn't exactly backing up his point that there's a bunch of fanboys out there criticizing the inclusion of these 2 characters, because that's simply not the case. It's basically him getting his ass handed to him. In breaking down why they're angry, however, it becomes clear the reasons for their objections are pretty ridiculous. Much like this article. Normally, Anthony goes and opens up with all the isms, but starts off with Force diversity. Now, I haven't really heard this criticism of The Force Awakens, but definitely with The Last Jedi. Cough cough, Admiral Gender Studies. This criticism is difficult to take seriously, as is, but even harder when one sees what the diversity critique draws issues with and don't draw issues with. Rey, a young woman who had to fight all her life to survive on a desert planet full of bandits, can swing a lightsaber with some degree of efficiency. Yes, because knowing how to survive on a desert planet has the same equivalence of wielding a lightsaber. They're 2 very different skill sets. With a lightsaber, if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, you're gonna cut your legs off by accident. I would argue that Finn wielded the lightsaber with some efficiency. She beat the shit out of a seasoned Dark Jedi with no training. That's fucking stupid. That's not some efficiency. Likewise, she could use some minor force powers without training, as seen when she intuitively manipulates a stormtrooper using the Jedi mind trick. Anthony, the Jedi mind trick is not a minor power. It's fucking mind control. However, when Baby Yoda lifts up a raging mudhorn using the Force, some of those same people criticizing Rey are silent. 1. There's still 4 more episodes in the season to explain it. 2. It's an alien and not a human infant. If it was, people would be having problems with it. Just because people aren't criticizing it now because there's no explanation doesn't mean they won't in the future if nothing is given. Oh, and this is false equivalency, because your next logical leap is it has to be sexism. And now we're going to get to my favorite remark. Moreover, these fans don't see an issue with the 9-year-old Anakin Skywalker in The Phantom Menace piloting a Naboo N1 starfighter without any training, nor do they draw any issue with how he destroyed the Trade Federation blockade by himself. Now, Anthony, I know that you were pretty young at the time and most likely shitting your diaper when this movie came out, but everybody over the age of 20 had a huge fucking problem with that scene. In my opinion, that is far more cringier than Rey wielding a lightsaber and using the Force because of how astronomically stupid it was. Rey's an adult and her using the Force is somewhat plausible with a proper explanation. Not a 9-year-old piloting a fucking starfighter. It's dumb! These complaints only arise when women do things. My God, you act as if no male character in the history of cinema, or Star Wars for that matter, has ever been criticized, even though that is like the majority of my complaints with the prequels is fucking Anakin Skywalker. George Lucas made the Dark Lord of the Sith a fucking emo kid. You know, I've thought I'd gotten over that shit, but it still pisses me off to this very day. The complaints directed at Amara, played by Julia Jones, are far more minimal, as she is a relatively minor character. However, by breaking down why fans are angry about Amara, it's become increasingly clear what irritates them about Cara Dune. Quite frankly, I don't remember hearing anyone complain about Cara Dune herself. Personally, I find Gina Carano pretty freaking hot, and I really respect her martial arts prowess. I'm actually surprised they didn't introduce her character sooner. A native of an isolated fishing village, Amara develops obvious feelings for the Mandalorian. And as I pointed out in my review, this felt rather forced because there wasn't enough time given to let their relationship gel. Plus, he didn't take his helmet off, and recycle sloth joke. We still don't know. He could be butt-ass ugly under that helmet. A native of an isolated fishing village, oh wait, I already read that, who's been hired to defend the helpless citizens against the raiders. Although she's led a peaceful existence, Amara is quick-thinking enough to hide her daughter and herself during an attack, and familiar enough with a blaster to hit stationary targets. Boy, that's the understatement of the year. In short, she has moderately competent survival skills to get by in a troubled region, like a widow on the range in any number of Western films. However, some fans took issue that the only person in the village who knew how to use a weapon is a woman. Now, I've already gone over this, but I'll go over it again because I feel compelled to. The problem actually isn't with Amara. The problem is the fact that you have a village full of people who live on the frontier and don't have any basic survival skills. Just the one person. That's ludicrous. It's stupid. It's probably just poor writing. And pointing that out, quite frankly, isn't sexist. For the last 4 years, Disney has been stuffing Star Wars with agenda. And sometimes it's kind of hard not to see it, even if it doesn't exist. Now, it's a good possibility that Amara will be returning in a future episode and we'll get a little bit more backstory on her and we can find out why she's a crack shot. The issue is, this wasn't explained within that episode. Now, I'm going to use Firefly as an example of how something like this can be done properly. In the episode Our Mrs. Reynolds, Mal gets married to a woman named Saffron, who by all appearances is a simple villager, but it turns out that she's a con woman. And the way it unfolds in the episode is just simply amazing. This brings us to Cara Dune, who is confirmed to play a reoccurring role in The Mandalorian. But her introduction into last week's episode, Sanctuary, was enough to turn some viewers against a series they previously lauded, all because of its purported forced diversity and wokeness. And again, all this evidence is based off of 2 tweets and 1 video by EVS. My only problem is the fact that she was punching him in the helmet with her bare hands. Well, actually, it turns out that she is wearing gloves with reinforced knuckles, so I'm gonna walk that back. Also, I want to point out the reason why nobody is challenging Cara's abilities, because the explanation is given in the episode. She's an ex-rebel shock trooper. She fought on Endor. I don't need any more explanation other than that. Also, she's a rather thick woman, and she looks like she can take care of herself. So yes, it's very easy to believe all that. Now there's one last part of the article I'm going to read before calling it quits, and afterwards I'm going to ask a very important question. Of course, anyone who argues that The Mandalorian is unstoppable clearly hasn't been watching the show. He's repeatedly outmatched and outgunned. Yes, because to otherwise do the opposite would just make things even more boring. In every episode, the Mandalorian is pitted against forces he can't defeat on his own. He needed IG-11 to reach Baby Yoda, he needed Baby Yoda to stop the Mudhorn, and Quill to rebuild the ship. And he needed the other members of the Mandalorian Enclave to escape the other bounty hunters. At no point has the Mandalorian been presented as an unstoppable force, and there are plenty of fighters on his level throughout the galaxy. Oh, and Anthony, that sentence should have ended with a period, not a comma. I fixed it for you. You're welcome. You know what, Anthony? Those are some very fine points you're making, so I got one question for you. Why didn't they do that for Rey? Or Jyn Erso? Or Kira? And what about those other female characters that get labeled as a Mary Sue? What do they all have in common? Could it be the soft bigotry of low expectations? Or the casual sexism that female characters can't be treated the same way as their male counterparts? You know, being put through the ringer? I'm sure it's nothing. Now, I've said this before, and I'm pretty sure I'll be saying it over and over again until the end of time or until YouTube removes my channel. I want to see my protagonist struggle. It's them overcoming obstacles that makes them interesting and the journey entertaining. But apparently the hero's journey only applies to male protagonists and not female ones, for reasons. And to point that out, I guess just makes it sexist. So congratulations, Disney. Not only did you make the Force female, but you also made it boring. I'll catch you next time, folks. If you enjoyed this video, go and smash that like button. And if you didn't, well, thanks for watching anyway. Make sure to hit subscribe for more of my crappy content and shitty opinions. Make sure and bash that bell for notifications. I don't know if it works, but it sure makes me feel better. Oh, and one last thing, COPPA is just around the corner, so make sure to go and support me on BitChute, just in case my channel mysteriously disappears come January 1st. I also have a P.O. box if you want to go and send me fan mail. I've had this thing for almost a year now, and I don't know why I haven't advertised it, but here it is. And last but not least, I want to give a huge thanks to my Subscribe Star supporters. You guys are awesome. Especially you, EHuntington, who joined the I'm a Sucker with a lot of dough tier for some reason. All joking aside, thank you very much, man. I do appreciate it.